My name is Justin Boling, a Colorado native and an EOS implementer, um, working with clients all across Colorado, Wyoming, as well as into the East Coast these days. And so excited to share EOS and kind of how it's changed my life a little bit and impacted, the businesses that I've been a part of more recently than not. And, excited to share that. One of the things I really love about what I get to do is, there's a pastoral element in working with business owners. And then you get to see some of those aha moments, which is pretty dang cool, honestly, where they navigate through a problem or they see that they can get what they want out of business, as well as what they can have a successful business at the same time and not give up, family life or things like that. So it's a tool that allows business owners to do that and to scale. So my experience has been from, my dad had a construction company as a kid. Saw the highs and lows of that. It was fantastic. What I remember is he was super proud about it, about owning a business and being an entrepreneur in that facet. We saw the lows of it, where he was sued, and essentially we built two houses for free, and so the business kind of went under. And so we saw all of that, and that stuck with me, though, that he loved it and enjoyed it. And so been a serial side hustler for a long time, and you know the trajectory of that from a personal business standpoint is, worked in churches, worked in nonprofits, worked in e-com, digital publishing, websites, and a lot of areas like that that created really growth opportunities, as well as in a roofing company where we worked with high-end clients, from Disney to Universal to Hard Rock hotels, and putting roofs on those places. And so uh, in all of those businesses, I got really frustrated, really, really easily, because one of two things normally happened. Either one, there was a lack of integrity, and people didn't do what they said they were going to do, or two, there was just a lack of business acumen, I guess is the best way to say it, and their ability to sit in a meeting honestly, and it was, hey, we're looking at the P&L and we need to make a decision on people, and we have too many people. That's the only way to write it. And walking out of that meeting with, no, that's not an option. Those kind of things really frustrated me. And so more recently was able to be hired on with a local company here in the pet space, employee number 11. And we utilized some of the basic principles. I was reading Traction at the time, utilized some of the basic principles that allowed us to kind of scale the business. And so we went from about $25 million to over $100 million in about a 3.5 year window. And then that company later sold for over $1 billion, all assets included, buildings, manufacturing equipment, and everything. And EOS was a piece of that. It was not a huge piece. We did what was called self-implementing, and I'll touch on that here in a little bit. Would say we didn't do it very well. If we would have hired somebody and brought somebody in that does what I do from a coaching and teaching aspect, I think that number could have been much, much greater. And so that's kind of why I got into doing what I do now. And I love it. And I think it can help businesses do what we did, as well as it can help them find that balance in life. And so I'm going to share my screen here with you. I know some additional people have been joining as well. So we'll just kind of walk through this, and again, if there's questions, you can pop them in the chat or make a note on your on a piece of paper or something. We'll make time for that. I'll probably breeze through this pretty quick, so please make sure that you do that, and we'll spend some time doing that at the end here. So essentially, if you don't know what EOS is, it's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And we talk about in that process three things with clients or in the process. The first one of those is vision. And this is really just getting everyone in your organization from a leadership team level 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you're going to get there. This is a key piece in that process. And we'll talk a lot about it because the vision and then people as core items of a business are often something overlooked by entrepreneurs and business owners. The second piece is traction. this is truly the word traction is what happens here. We work to put in discipline and accountability into the business from top to bottom so that that vision comes to life every single day. So you're seeing it happen so that everybody is working on something that pushes towards that vision and that goal. And then the third one is healthy. And this one always kind of seems like an oxymoron when you talk to people, but it's really true. This is where we build and we help the leadership team to become more cohesive and to become functional and to become honestly happy being together. Because oftentimes when we work with clients, that does not happen and we don't see that. And that's a huge stumbling block when people are trying to break through ceilings, grow a business, and get from point A to point B. If you have someone or someone's in that room and on that team that make it difficult to have those open conversations or to trust with certain pieces of information, and honestly that you don't enjoy being around, it's a huge issue. And so we talk a lot about that as a key component of the operating system within EOS. So who is it for? It is for any kind of business. You can see that on the second one. It's agnostic, but it's for primarily the target audience is 10 employees or more. The caveat to that is I have a client that is one person, and he's gangbusters. He's crushing it. He's doing really well. He wants to build the business the right way. I've also seen it work within businesses 500 plus employees. So it kind of can run the gamut on that from a business type. And then again, from industries, I've seen it work in the pet industry. I've seen it work in law firms, CPAs, home services, security companies, you name it. And it can fit into that process. Again, it's a tool, right? And it allows the business to function within that. It does not change the business. Some of the challenges then that we see and we hear from clients is they get really frustrated, right? A lot of the ones that I talk to, they're at that point where they're not getting the growth. They either have ineffective people, they're lacking or frustrated with the control or accountability within the business. One of my clients was truly hitting the ceiling and they were super frustrated to the point of, I think we're going to give up. I think we're done. We've done everything that we can do. And we don't know what else to do because they hit this financial ceiling of around $2 million for the last 3 years. So this was kind of a last ditch effort and they're starting to see some of those changes, that traction and the team really rally around and starting to see that growth, which is super exciting. And then I think the key one in all of this is the leadership mindset. This is where I think the business type and the number of employees kind of goes out the window. If the key leadership and the people at the top, primarily the owner or the ownership group, is fully on board, it works. And if they're not, it's a waste of time, effort, money, energy, all of those things. But if that person or persons are on board and fully in my opinion, it doesn't matter how big the company is. You can grow and you can utilize and build the foundation of that business so that you can then add the right people and build the right processes as you're going through that. Here's probably how a lot of people have been introduced to EOS, this main book here in the front, Traction, multi-million bestseller by Gino. He has touched or written all of these books that you see on the screen. I'm not going to go through all of them. All of them are fantastic. If you have not read, I can send you a copy of Traction. The other one that I would highly encourage is Get a Grip. It's the one there with the tire tracks on it. And that one's kind of more in a Patrick Lencioni style. It's a bit more of a novel or a story about a business going through the process of installing and implementing EOS in their business. And the other ones are fantastic as well, but those are the two that I would call out in that process if people are interested. And we kind of say that, and then we go into this too. Like I get asked oftentimes, is this just the new cool thing? Is this a new fad? And this kind of just gives credibility. So this has been going on for a while, is the first thing I would say. This is probably the data that I have here is probably a few months old. We just had a big quarterly event, and I think some of these numbers were increased. I think it was about 700 global implementers, and that's from China all the way to the US. to Mexico to Canada, across the globe, people implementing this and helping businesses. Almost 200,000 companies using EOS tools, whether they're implementing, excuse me, or they're running on EOS fully and they've graduated beyond that time. And then over almost 160,000 full day sessions. So that is an 8-hour day where a team is in a room working to install this into their business. That's a lot of hours if you think about that and do the numbers. So this just shows it's not a new fad. It's been around for 10 plus years and it's not going anywhere. The pieces in this process and in this system, they're not a silver bullet. We always say that it's simple, but it's not easy, right? But these things are tried and tested, as you can see here with the numbers. And businesses are thriving under this. One of the things that we heard at the quarterly conference that we were at, the average company that runs on EOS, this is across all companies that are running on it currently, see a 25% increase year over year, which is pretty incredible to have a number like that with, I think, truly running on EOS and those companies doing that is a testament to installing this and running your business on that. So what I'm going to walk through, and I'm kind of going to go real quick, as I said, is truly the EOS model and what that means, what it looks like, and some of the language around that. So when we talk about this and when we talk to anyone who's interested or just wants to know about it, I was talking to somebody the other day at my son's hockey practice, and they're running on it, and he had a ton of questions. And we talk about these in components, right? And so at the center of all that, what we always center this on is your business. So whether that's marketing, whether that's cars, whether that's technology, whatever that is, that's always the focus and at the center of this. And so these 6 components make up the EOS model and the EOS process. What has been found in the discovery process to create this and cobble it together essentially is there's really about 136 problems within business. And those problems can be root cause analysis down to one of these 6 components so that you can solve those problems and build your business and have them go away forever. Okay. So moving forward in this conversation, then we talk about a 100% goal in a lot of things we do. I do CrossFit. Well, I want to gain, right? And you talk about it that way. Well, we also talk about in this process, that's utopia. That's never going to happen, right? So if I came in and I said, hey, we're going to get you to 100% strong in all of these, well, I'm probably honestly lying to you, right? And so what we talk about and what we even say about ourselves is we're an 80% business. We're going to get you 80% of the way there in these components. And at that point, you graduate from us and you move on and you've mastered them, okay? Life changes. Nobody saw COVID coming, so you have to change with all of that. The 20% note that you see on here, this is where most businesses operate. So they operate at this place where they're succeeding, right? Oftentimes in spite of themselves. They either can't get out of their own way. Oftentimes they're maybe super strong at one of these. Maybe they have amazing people, right? Or maybe they have all of the data they could ever want and it's 100% accurate. But the other areas they either don't know about or they are completely failing, but they don't know how because they've never been walked through those processes. So when we do that, the first one then that we talk about in that and try and push to get 100% strong in is the vision component. And these are just a couple of the tools, and I'll come back to these as well, and we'll walk through them a little bit more. This one, again, is really, truly just about getting your leadership team, your core team, on the same page with where you're going and how you're going to get there, okay? The second one is the right people. And one of the things, this isn't necessarily a new concept, but we teach and we urge our clients to get the right people in the right seats. And the piece on this too that we'll dive into a little bit is you have to have both of these. And there's 2 main people issues that often come up that show you either have the right people and they're in the wrong seat, or you have the right seats outlined and you don't have the right people, okay? So we'll walk through a few tools to help people diagnose that. The third one is data. So this one is plain and simple. This is getting decreasing your subject mind, right? As entrepreneurs, when we grow businesses, we bring a lot of emotion in, right? And we really try to make decisions based on the information that we have. Well, we shift that and we say, what are the hard facts and the data and the information that you have? Okay, we give a few tools for that as well, so that you can make an informed decision rather than an emotional decision that then moves your company forward. The fourth one is issues. This is by far my favorite component. That might sound weird, but I love this because this is where truly people in businesses and leadership teams start to galvanize if you start to do some of these things really, really well. When you start to solve problems in your business, right? Because the other thing that we say here too is if your vision and your people and your data components are pretty strong, all your issues are going to come to the top, right? You're going to start smoking those things out. The faster and the better that you can get at solving those problems and making them go away, that's then when you start to see a lot of movement in your business and you start to get really excited because whenever you solve a problem or you cross something off your list, there's a hit of dopamine that kind of goes into your brain, and this creates additional pieces of that. The next one is process. This is where we just talk about the 20-80 rule, right? Kind of like what we talked about in strengthening this process and implementing EOS. It's documenting that process and then getting it followed by all. It's not your SOP documents. This is not a 400-page step-by-step, honestly, super boring, and nobody ever reads or looks at document or process. This is 20% of the process to get you 80% of the way there. And then informing the people that need to know how to do it so that it happens every time. The last one then here is traction. And this is where, vision at the top and traction at the bottom. This is truly, again, like I was saying before, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you start to see the continuous motion and the vision coming to life, things getting done, the accountability happening, okay? And we do that through these two tools that we call rocks in a 90-day world, as well as what we call the meeting pulse. And we'll walk through that meeting pulse and that agenda. And I think that's one of the things from this that some of you can take into your business on Monday, right? And start implementing that. And I think that you would start seeing some accountability and some direction within your leadership team pretty quickly. So here's the tools. We'll go deep dive in some of these and we'll go pretty quick. So the first one I want to kind of call out is the 8 questions. We also call this the VTO, or Vision Traction Organizer, and getting teams 100% strong. So here's what that looks like. This is the vision side of that. So when we walk teams through this is about a 16-hour process to do this. That seems crazy, but when you start to break this down, we walk through exercises, and our goal is to get the team aligned. Some clients walk in with some of these already done. That's fantastic. But there's something to be said for bringing that in and allowing the team to breathe into what those things are. So the first one of those that we look at and we define is core values. What are those, right? What are the guiding principles of your business? And how do those impact who you are and who you hire and how you fire and what you stand for? And we'll come back to this one in the people thing, but this is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses miss, because we all say, oh, we don't have time for that. I got to make money. I have bills to pay. I got salaries to pay, whatever it is. So you skip it and you move forward. It's integral. The next one is core focus. This has been called hedgehog concept, a lot of things. It's your mission, right? What is the core thing that you as a business do and live for? In my opinion, oftentimes this is not a public statement. This is oftentimes is a company statement, something you say internally, and this is your niche, okay, is another way to say that. We get the whole team aligned in agreement on that. Then the next one is a 10-year target. 10-year target, I've seen anywhere from about 3.5 years to up to 25, 30 years. I think Disney's is to be a $125 billion company, right? That's kind of an unlimited year, right? It's a bit of a core focus as well. This can be a big range in that, but this is, again, what is that 10-year goal? right? What are we aiming at? Are we aiming to have 15 franchises across Colorado or the US? Are we looking to have be a $100 million company? What is that big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And documenting that and getting agreements. And then the fourth one here is a marketing strategy. The disclaimer on this is not a marketing plan. Marketing plan is completely different. The goal of this section and these four things, again, is to get your leadership team in agreement. Okay, agreement on what you probably are saying. It's an agreement on your target market. Who are the core people that you need to be spending your precious sales and marketing dollars on? I talked to an entrepreneur this morning, runs a security business, and he goes, Justin, I don't have a ton of money to put into marketing. He goes, I have maybe 10K a year. Great. Do you know who you're targeting? Do you know the right people so you can spend that time and that money correctly? He goes, no, we don't know. That's why you walk through this. And then what are your three uniques? What are the three things that you do better than anybody else in your industry, any of your competitors? What's your proven process, right? We'll show the proven process for EOS here at the end of this, but what does that look like from the beginning to the end? And then the fourth one, you're guaranteed, right? What is the thing that if they work with you and your company that you promise 100% will happen? And the reason that you do that and what that happens, what that allows from a customer perspective is they then are easily able to jump in, and their fear of adaptation decreases immensely because they say, okay, hey, I'll give this a shot. And if it doesn't work, I'm guaranteed something still in return. It's not a loss for me. The last one here on this top portion, this vision side, is a 3-year picture. This one's kind of fun. This is where you kind of play a mind game, right? You get a dream a little bit. We do some numbers, we take some measurables, some stuff like that. But then you ask the question to the team, okay, if your 10-year target is to be a $100 million company in 10 years, what is that going to look like, right? What do you have to do, right? Oh, we have to hire 15 people to do that. We would have to have a much bigger office, right? You get a kind of dream and vision cast, right? The reason that we walk through that exercise with the teams, as soon as you not just verbalize those things, as soon as you write them down, the ability for them to happen increases. Okay, example of this. I played golf this summer. I have a mindset coach, and he challenged me to do this. He goes, Justin, when you go up to tee off, be the first one, because in a scramble, nobody wants to tee off first. Everybody's nervous. Great. So I go up, tee off, and he goes, close your eyes. Don't take a practice swing, and just envision where the ball is going to go. And I laughed. I was like, this isn't going to work, man. Like, whatever. And envisioned it. Maybe it was a great shot. I don't know. It went exactly where I thought it was going to go. And I was blown away. Did it the rest of the day. I played the best round of golf I've ever played in my life, and I'm not great. Okay. And it was fun, though, on the other side of that, to be the person, hey, Justin, you got to go last now because you're playing really, really well. Normally I'm first, right? So when you can say things out loud, when you can do them and you write them down, the percentage and the chance that it happens increases is the point of that process. Okay. That's that vision side. That's the vision casting. That's the dreaming side, right, of a business and this VTO. The next piece, then, this is where you start to build the traction, right? This is where you start to then go down. So we did a 10-year, you do a 3-year, and then you do a 1-year plan. What are those goals, right? In a year, right? So your goal is $100 million in 10 years. Okay, well, we already know what it has to look like in 3 years. What has to then happen in the next 12 months, okay, for this to come to fruition, for you to be able to do that, okay? We talk about those as goals for the year. So that's the first one. The second one then is rocks. And we'll talk about this when we get to the traction component a little bit. This is that 90-day world. We start to instill, okay, you got a year, those things have to happen. You have to increase your sales by $5 million. Okay, great. What then has to happen in the next 90 days for you to be able then to accomplish that $5 million goal, which is in your 1-year plan? Okay. This the other piece I'll say on this too, this is not a strategic plan process. Strategic plan is great, has its place. My frustration always was with it. You do 3 days of massive planning, and then oftentimes we forgot about it by February. And then by the time November came around, it was like, oh yeah, we should probably look at that. Oh crap, we didn't do any of that, right? This builds that accountability down into the business by breaking it down chunk by chunk, right? And then the last piece on here is an issues list. This being on this document has two core purposes. The first core purpose is it gets all of those 2 a.m. thoughts. You guys probably don't have them. I have them. Those 2 a.m. worries, fears, whatever it is, onto a piece of paper and out of your mind. So you can do what? Sleep, right? It's amazing, right? You write down your idea and it's somewhere. The second thing it does, this is then a public document within your leadership team. Anyone on your team can put an issue on this document at any time. And it allows them to sleep, but it also allows them to voice into the business and say, hey, I have an issue. I see an issue over here. Let's get it on the list. And then there's a tool we'll later on talk about where then you work through those problems and those issues and you solve them. Okay. So that's where this piece comes in this document. That's the vision traction organizer. And again, this is 2 days of the first part of the process that we'll show here at the end that we work with clients. This takes 16 hours to get all the way through this document and get a team on the same page. But once you do this, then you have a document, a 2-page document, outlines your company, tells you where you're going, and tells you how you're going to get there. And it gives you that tool and that cohesiveness from a team aspect. The next one is people. So we talked about right people, right seats. One of the tools that we talk about in this and we teach is the people analyzer. Here's a quick overview of what that is. Essentially, you look at this and you put your core values at the very top of that. So for EOS, our core values are humbly confident, grow or die, help first, do the right thing, and do what you say. And then honestly, you go person by person, right? And you say, okay, hey, does Maria embody these core values on a plus, which is a most of the time, a plus minus, as you can see right there with Jalen, and then a minus right next to him. Plus minus being sometimes, minus being rarely. Okay. So you judge and put the person into this space and you say, man, Maria is the quintessential person from a core value standpoint for our business. And then you would also look at this and you would say, man, Jalen seems to be struggling. He doesn't seem to embody our core values. Well, this does a few things in the two people issues that I'll bring up here in a second. This starts to give some hard data, right? I walked this with a client last week. They came to a conclusion on somebody in their team that was not performing, that was not at a level that they needed them to be at. So they had a piece of paper, a document, data to go to that person and have an honest face-to-face conversation with them. Okay, the other thing then that we talk about is right seats. And again, I'm going to drive it home. We've got to have both of these, and I'll explain why when we get to the people issues. And what we talk about here is the accountability chart. And the reason that we call it an accountability chart and not an org chart is every single person in the organization needs to be held accountable. That goes for the owner, that goes for the office manager. It does not matter. There needs to be accountability within the business from top to bottom so people can buy in. So when Gino Wickman was doing this and in that discovery process, he kind of got to a point where he saw 3 core functions to any business. Okay. So you have a marketing and sales function, you have an operations function, and you have a finance function. These can break out oftentimes, like finance, I've seen break out into HR as a department. I've seen IT come out of that as a department. The goal of this process and this exercise with businesses is to work through and to identify the unique accountability chart for each business because it's different. The one client that I have, they have these 3 things across the board. It works great for them. Another client that I have is completely opposite, and they have 5 of them across the way, and they broke out operations into multiple seats. Okay, it's different. The reason that we do that, and part of the way that we do that, is we look at functions. We don't look at people in the room. We don't look at titles. Those 2 things bring in ego and emotion. We're trying to look at the business. What is best? What is right for the business to move it forward. And then we go into filling those seats. I rarely talk about, and I honestly can't even remember talking about titles when having this conversation, because personally, I don't care. But the other side of that is you can call people whatever you want. If you're doing this process and you're walking through that and you're in the core functions that are working in the business, the rest doesn't matter. The other than two roles that were discovered in this process were an integrator role and a visionary role. The integrator role is the person who essentially manages and runs the day-to-days of the business. They're oftentimes in charge of the P&L. They are in charge of holding the leadership team accountable to their rocks, to their deliverables, and they're driving that cohesion, right? They're the glue to the business on a regular basis. The visionary, on the other hand, is the person who comes in with 20 ideas every single day. I worked for one of these. Fantastic. I worked for multiple of them. They can be amazing if you have the right partnership in play. Okay. The other things the visionary is traditionally good at and owns, they own the vision and the communication of that vision into the team. They are fantastic, honestly, in big relationships, whether that is a partner, whether that is a client. They're really, really good at solidifying those types of relationships and opportunities. When this partnership is defined and works, it is truly, and there's a book called this, but it's not a joke, is truly rocket fuel for the business. I always equate it to like a marriage. When these two people can spend time together and you can almost read each other's mind, which was a blessing that I was able to experience. We were able to move things forward because I understood prior to even saying something what the answer was going to be. So we were able to answer each other's questions. We were able to trust each other. I was able to say no to the company owner. That's huge in the integrator role as you're working through these processes. Okay. The other thing then that we do, and this is where you build in some of the accountability, regardless of where you sit on that leadership team or even in the company, we do one thing. We go through and we define 5 key responsibilities or roles for that seat. So if this is a marketing and sales person right here, the 5 things that they may be responsible for is LMA, lead, manage, and accountable of teams underneath them. It would be as simple as saying they're in charge of marketing, they're in charge of sales, whatever those core pieces that they are truly functional, or are responsible for on a regular basis, those go into those 5 spots. Okay. The reason then that we do that, when you roll that out then into the company, okay, just take that leadership level. You have a marketing, a sales, operations, and a finance seat. If Donna over in the finance seat sees that Justin over in the sales seat is responsible for those 5 things, her angst or anxiety of not seeing something happen goes down. She's going to be less likely to jump in and poke at Justin and say, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm not seeing it done, because it's documented. It's shown what needs to happen and what that person is being held responsible for, right? Additionally, you do that as well for the integrator and the visionary. And this is super key. The ownership does not get off the hook, right? They don't just own the company and get to go gallivant around, right? They're in the business, working in the business. They need to be held accountable just like everybody else. So if Jay in the operations seat looks up and he sees that the owner is non-existent, well, there's a lot of questions then that come into Jay's mind. What's he doing? Why is he here? Is he invested? Is he not, does he not care about the business anymore? You give that seat, the visionary seat, 5 or 6 things that they are solely responsible for. That, again, relieves the angst in the team and allows them to understand, hey, maybe they're not here because they're out managing a big relationship. Hey, maybe they're not here because they're out working on ideas that we need for our business and solutions to solve things for us. In this process, this is then where we have those 2 people issues that I was talking about. The first people issue is you have the right person. They embody your company 100% to a T. When you think of your brand, you think of that, you think of this person. Okay. That person's amazing, right? One of two things then can happen in that situation. One, you have a org chart or a accountability chart that looks like this. Oftentimes you can find a seat for them. If they're in something that doesn't fit them, you can find another place for them. The other thing that then happens that I urge clients to do, you're in a for-profit business. At some point, you have to make a decision. This isn't just here for charity, right? You're here to grow, you're here to do a service and to provide a livelihood for your own family as well as the other ones that work there. You have to make a hard decision then in that situation. You can't just bring people in simply because they match your core values. If there's not a role for them, making a role for them does not help the business. Okay. The other one that then happens here, and I see this oftentimes in a sales department, you have somebody who is responsible possibly for maybe a third, let's say, of your company revenue. They have a massive Rolodex, and they're crushing it. They hit all their goals, they exceed all the numbers, all those kind of things. But they suck to work with, and nobody likes them. Nobody wants to be around them. They drag meetings down. There's one solution in these situations, and it's not easy. I urge clients all the time, they have to move on from this person. And the reason why, they're chipping away at the culture, at the value, at the core of the business. If you don't move on from that person, it's a cancer situation. You have that person in a seat, or dare you promote that person, everybody else that sees it and feels it and deals with it is going to leave. I've experienced that. The other side of that, you're scared. You don't want to let that person go, right? They're a third of your revenue. How are we going to replace that? I've seen this almost every time that a company has made the decision to move on from that person. The team then galvanizes together, and before you know it, that third of a revenue that you just lost has been exponentially increased because they're so happy they don't have to deal with that negative person anymore. They're able to do their job. They're able to have open and honest conversations with each other. They're able to help, right? And they don't have to worry about those things anymore. You have then a cohesive team that embodies the vision, that drives it forward and builds towards the goal that the leadership team and the vision and the leaders and the owners have set forth. Okay. The next piece in there is data, right? So we talked about this one. I'm going to breeze through this one really quick. One of the tools that we talk about here is the scorecard. In businesses I've been a part of, we always looked at it from a month-to-month standpoint. Great, right? You have awesome data. Okay, it's fantastic. The downside of that, we would get 2 weeks in, right? Like we kind of are in December. Ah, crud, we're way behind. What are we going to do? We don't have time to do anything. Okay, well, I guess December's over, and we're just going to hope that plan for January is better. What this scorecard does is it simplifies the items in the business that truly matter. So here's an example of one here. And you do these things on a weekly basis. So this is 13 weeks. So this is a quarter at a glance. And it allows you to have a pulse to see the trends of the business. Okay. So you can call something out before you get that middle of the month update from the finance team or wherever it's coming from for you. And you can say the first week in, we're behind. We do not have enough leads to match what we need to hit. What's going on? And you can pivot and move and solve the problems that are in the business. Okay. This then allows you to also drop down those issues. So if you see on here, the goal on the weekly revenue is 84.5. Well, if you get below that, 81.2, you drop it down in the meeting pulse, which we'll talk about, and you use that language and you say, hey, we have an issue this week. What's going on? Right. And then you can solve that thing in the moment before it's too late and before you can't salvage the month or even the quarter at that point. The next component then that we talk about, like I said before, is my favorite. This is the issues component. And the piece in here that we talk about is IDS. So what does IDS stand for? And why is the issues component my favorite? None of you are working businesses that have issues. So I probably won't spend a lot of time on this. But the reason that I love this is pretty clear, and I'll tell you why. So IDS stands for identify, discuss, and solve. So something else that's happened to me, and again, I'm sure I'm the only one that this has ever happened to. I walk into a meeting that's been scheduled for an hour. The topic is one issue. We talk about it for an hour and we discuss the heck out of the problem. What's the solution then at the end of that meeting? Hey, Justin, can you schedule another meeting for the end of this week or next week for us to talk about it? No, I cannot, because this is a waste of time. So, what this process does, you go back to the VTO, right? You have your issues list, right? This is how it works. You have your issues on a list, okay? And then you simply prioritize. You don't go around and vote on which one's the most important. You come in and you say, I raise my hand, hey, that one's the most important. Great, that's number one. Great, what's number two? That's number two. And there's number three, okay? Well, perfect. Then you IDS the first one. So you have a right seat issue. You identify what is the core root cause of that problem. Then you discuss it. As soon as somebody repeats themselves or starts politicking for a certain resolution, you're done. This takes the integrator, this takes a very strong person that honestly loves interrupting people, right? To be in that situation and say, okay, great, we're done. What's the solve? Okay, the solve. Justin, you're going to talk to Andy by the end of this week and you're going to report back, and that's the solve. Okay, boom. Guess what? You just solved an issue, and it should take you probably anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes to do that. When teams get really good at this, you're able to then solve 9, 12, 15 problems in a day. And I can't tell you how amazing it is to walk out of a meeting and go and tell your team and say, hey, we solved that problem and it's done. Like, it's gone. And the other side of that is, in that meeting, when you're doing that together, it galvanizes again that team, the leadership crew, to say, dude, that was actually really fun. We actually did something that solved a problem that moved things forward for our teams and for our business. So you continue to do that process. And then when you're done with that 1, 2, 3, you cross those off and you prioritize again. When we have our big quarterly conferences, we do this with about, I'd say, 150 to 200 people in a room. And all of us know the tool, but think about trying to solve problems. We'll probably solve 50 in a day, right? In probably a 2 or 3 hour period, because we understand how this works, right? You're walking through that and you just solve problem after problem after problem after problem. And it is so fun when you're able to do that. It's, again, I'm a huge list person. When you can cross something off your list and get it done, there's a dopamine hit in your mind that loves to do that, right? I'll oftentimes even write stuff down on my list that I already did and cross it off just so I can feel good about myself, right? Hey, I made the bed today. Boom, done, right? Move on. Okay, so you continue to do that, continue to build your list. And the next one here is process. So what is the process? The first piece to this is documentation, okay? But the second piece to this is followed by all. This is that 20/80 approach. Okay, we've all seen the SOP documents, 400, 500, 600 pages of whatever, and it's written out step by step. Hey, you go into this field and you type this, then you click here and you do this. Okay, if you hand one of those to me and I do everything in there, and then we hire a new person and I train that person, you're just creating robots, right? So what you're missing here then is you've brought people in that have creative minds that can solve problems in new ways. So you give them 20% process, right? That gets you 80% of the way there. And you allow them, right, to create within that process. Hey, if you get these 12 things done, fantastic. How you do them doesn't matter as long as they're done in this order. Solve problems within there, be creative, be you. You're then breathing people into the business. You're not just creating these people then that continue to do it. The other thing then that happens in that process is you then have people who start to create tribal knowledge, right? And they miss then, and you don't continue to move and grow and change things as times change. The last component here is traction, and this is the L10 meeting that I was talking about. So 90-day world. These are some of the core pieces that we teach on this too. This meeting happens the same day, same time, It always starts on time, always ends on time. If people are late to this meeting, they are almost ridiculed to a point because you should not be late to this. This should become the integral part of the week of your business. Okay. If you're not allowing your team the time to come in and do this, and it doesn't become that process, there's a larger issue within the leadership team. Okay. And you have the same agenda. And here's what that agenda looks like. Okay. So you have your good news. This is where you just start to get to know each other, right? And you start to talk about, hey, personal good news and business good news. And then you do a reporting section. Again, you've never been in this meeting where, you have a meeting like this and the reporting all of a sudden takes over the whole meeting and you never get to talk about anything you were supposed to talk about. That's never happened to you guys, right? So you do a scorecard review real quick. Hey, is it above or is it on track or off track? Off track, you drop it down. You do a rock review, you do the same thing. You do customer and employee headlines. Hey, we have a new person starting today, or hey, John is leaving us, he's going to retire. You give some updates. Those things take about 20 minutes at the top. Then you do 5 minutes to review last week's actions. And then you spend 60 minutes working through the issues within the business, solving true actual problems and getting them to go away forever. Okay. And growing your business and driving it forward. And then you conclude. The biggest thing on this conclusion is then you rate the meeting and you go around the room, 0 to 10, 10 being best, and you rate it. Then you have a gauge to understand how well the meeting is going and if people are getting what they need out of it. That right there, you guys could install on Monday in your businesses, and you could see accountability and growth and conversation happen really, really fast. That's the model. Okay, that's what this looks like from a large scale. Very quick. I understand that. So again, if there's questions, we can do that here in a little bit. The other thing I want to talk about and show, this is then the EOS process. So this is the journey, as we say it, that we take clients through. So what we did today is what we call a 90-minute meeting. I did it really fast. So normally it's far more in depth. We give physical tools. It's kind of interactive. It's super fun. I love doing them. And then the second process then of this is a focus day. This is where we start to instill the accountability. We do a hitting the ceiling thing because that happens in business. We hit ceilings financially or in a department. We do a first draft of the accountability chart. And what does that look like? And then we assign rocks. We start to instill, as you can see there on the side where on the orange where it says 90 days, we start to instill that 90-day culture, that 90-day world into the business. Then we work and we teach thoroughly that meeting pulse so that can be installed into the business and start solving problems on a week-to-week basis. And then the last one, we take a first draft at the scorecard. It takes a lot of companies 18 months plus to get to a point where they feel comfortable with that. So we just take a first draft at that. The other thing that you'll notice here too, this is a learned process, okay? Spaced learning process. The reason that is, you do a focus day and then you have 30 days to go back into the business and execute, right? It allows you to understand the information that has been taught and put into the business, go into the business and execute, and then you come up for a breath of air and you work through that VTO. And we go through core values, core focus, 10-year target. We're setting the foundation with the traction so that the vision, once it's in place, has somewhere to then go and grow from. And then the second one there, 30 days later, you go into the business and execute and you come back out. And we finish working through that plan. By the end of those 3-day sessions, businesses walk away with a full document where they are fully agreeant on every single piece that matters to the business. And then we got to work into the fun part, which is the execution part of the business, where you're running your quarterlies and your annuals and you're solving problems almost in real time, but they're larger problems, okay? They're merger questions, they're things like that. And you start to then work through those things. Clients stick with us on average about 2 years. I always say if I do my job right, they don't need me. The goal is not to build myself or ourselves into the business and to become needed every single day for the rest of the business's life. It's not my business. A lot of the businesses that I work with, I don't really enjoy their business. I'm curious about their business, but it's not my business. My job is to come in and to teach and to coach and to install the tools so they can get what they want out of the business and live the life that they want to live, so that they can go on the vacation that they haven't gone on with their kids that are growing and going to be out of the house soon, so they don't miss those moments. Those are a lot of the conversations that I have with people. The one this morning, he was super excited. He wants to, uh, every employee on his leadership team doesn't own a house. That's a big deal for him. He wants to ensure that they can have a house and that they own that house. And that's something that we're working into that plan with him. And he can get that out of the business because that's something that he wants. So again, high level overview. I understand it's quick. That's kind of the hope. I've had a lot of people ask about what I do or what EOS is, and I can shoot this out as a recording as well. If people do want to move forward, here's a couple ways how to do it. You can drop it in the chat. I'll put my information on the board here in a little bit too. The 90-minute meeting really is just getting leadership teams on the same page, and it's oftentimes easier to bring somebody else in to talk about a process or a system rather than somebody within the business trying to pitch it. Uh, Oftentimes in those situations, you get an eye roll. Oh gosh, here's John with another idea, and people get frustrated with that. But you bring somebody else in and you allow the team to make that decision, it instantly starts to breathe life into that team, which is a huge health piece. Do one-on-one personal follow-up. I'm open for coffees. I'm open for calls, all that kind of stuff too. And then emails. I do more on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So drop a number in there. Hit me up if you want something as well. Here's my information. You can find me. I make it pretty easy. I post my phone number a lot. Don't tell my wife. It's not for any rude reasons. It's just I want to be available to people that need stuff, whether that's mental health, whether that's business problems, whether that's going and playing golf or cornhole. I'm game for any of it, and so I'm here to help businesses and owners honestly get what they want, and I love it. I hope that you can hear the passion in my voice in that, and it's truly a blessing to get to work with the clients and the people that I get questions. Feel free to unmute and we can go through those. If not, feel free to jump off and we can. So, yeah, no worries either way. Thanks, Angela. Appreciate you.